welcome everyone to this webinar today. We've been really looking forward to this, and I hope you are too. And I hope you look forward to engaging with the subject. And like Sabina said, there'll be some time at the end for some questions. So let's get stuck in. So a lot of companies have been investing in the last 10, 15 years in all these new frameworks and transformation to try and improve their agility and success rate. And really what we're seeing is, in many respects, it hasn't yielded the results we expected or that we hoped for. We have projects still taking too long. In the end, we're often building things that people don't use or potentially don't bring value to the business. And when you're looking at the latest trends and thought leaders, you could be thinking, oh no, I need to spend millions again on transforming to yet another costly and complicated framework. But what we're here to tell you today and talk about today is about how product development isn't about frameworks or processes, and neither is agility for that respect either. But what we're going to do is try and delve into what is at the core of good modern product development, and find some simple and easy, cost-effective ways that you can apply in your everyday work to help you to improve that success rate in terms of solving real customer problems and getting business results, and minimizing these projects that just go over time and don't give you what you wanted. So we want to demystify product development in that respect. So I think it's quite often painted as being a complicated art that's not masterable by mere mortals, and then hopefully we can give you some really good takeaways that you can start applying today. So let's get stuck in. The first thing we want to talk about is what actually is product development. Before I get into that, actually, just to give you an overview of the discussion, I'll talk about the agenda a little bit as well. So we're going to go into first a little bit, what do we mean by product development when we're talking about product development? What is it that we're actually referring to? We're then going to go into talking about high performing teams and some of the aspects of that are important in terms of product development from our perspective. We'll then go into more about design and product management competencies in teams, and finally some 3 really important but easy improvements that you can make today. So that's the basic structure for the discussion. But now we're going to go into what do we mean by product development. Let's start with you, David. Would you like to give your take first on what do we mean when we talk about product development? What is it?
Sure. For me, product development is how we can solve a business goal or a business problem in a way that connects and aligns with what a real customer actually needs. So connecting that business desire with the user's desire. Thank you.
Nice, thanks a lot for that, David. Is there anything you'd add from your side, Johannes, on that respect?
It's definitely working very close together, and we usually want to talk about how you work best if you're even in the same room. It might sound silly, but it's actually a very, very important step of working close together and getting aligned and really understanding why you're building things, because you really you want to meet the customer needs and solving business problems at the same time, and you do it at the best together.
Nice. So about solving business problems, meeting customer needs, cross-collaborating between tech, design, product management. To that I'd add as well the fact that we're working a lot with outcomes rather than simply outputs. Of course, the outputs are there, but the main focus is in terms of what effect are those outputs and things that we build going to have on the customer's behavior and on the business results at the end of the day. So I'd add that as well. But then just delving a little bit deeper then into this, Johannes, what would you say from what you've seen, the key differences between companies adopting more of this kind of product development approach that we're referring to compared to companies that maybe don't do that?
Well, from a designer perspective, my point of view, I would say that you don't work with handovers. You don't need to, because you work together all the time. And if you do that, it usually doesn't get wrong, or as wrong as if you work with handovers. And because we're working together, we get very proud of our work, and we are also confident that we know best, because we work together and meet the customers together, and therefore I don't need to hand over something. I can work with tech and product straight away, which is a huge benefit.
Nice. And how about yourself, David?
Yeah. No, I'd like to chime in a lot there with Johannes, what he's saying, and sort of minimizing all the red tape and minimizing those things, because in a close collaboration, no matter if you're on site or if you're working remotely, that constant contact that we have with each other while working is really reducing unnecessary time spent on things other than solving problems. You can really focus on solving a genuine problem, or resolving a need or a desire for an end user, and really focusing on that.
Definitely. Yeah, and I think it's a lot to do with in terms of how we measure success as well. Is another key thing. We don't measure success in terms of how fast we can deliver or how many things we can deliver in a short period of time. But it's more about how fast we can deliver, but how fast we can deliver value to our customers and to the business is more in terms of success. I think also I'd like to add a caveat as well to this question, in terms of, we talk about companies that do this and companies that don't, as if it's a binary thing. But I think all companies, even those that we see raised to the stars, all companies are somewhere on the grey zone in terms of following these kind of product management and product development best practices. So likewise, if you find yourself in a company where you feel that this is not something that you couldn't describe it as, oh, we're one of the companies that are doing it correctly, well, you're probably doing a lot more right than you think, and you can apply a lot of these things to improve your way of working as well, even in a company that's not full out operating in the product model. But on that topic, would you say is this kind of product development approach for everyone, or is there certain companies that it works well for, and certain companies that it doesn't work well for? What would you say? David, would you like to start on that one?
Sure. Yeah, I do think it is actually for everyone. I think doing proper discovery and working closely together and really sort of converging or moving away from outputs towards outcomes and measuring your success in a different way can be used in any form of team, really. It doesn't matter if you have like a product that's aimed against consumers, or if it's business to business, or if your product is an API that's used internally in an organization. You can still work in the same way, no matter what. And it's all about building that sort of engagement and trying to figure out early what's the correct thing to build, so we don't take too large bets and spend too much money on things that might not really provide the value for any involved party that we desire.
And I also think if you find trouble in your organization, getting to this mindset of working, not every company can just adapt everything, and it start small is the first recommendation, and try to find the small, simple steps and the simple ways to do these things. And we will talk a little bit about more practical things that you can do along the way here.
Nice. So yeah, I'll summarize this section. We'll move on to the next topic. What we mean by product development: solving business problems in ways that meet real customer needs, aligning both the business and the customer value, working with outcomes instead of outputs. Again, focusing on that value as the goal and the measure of success is the key thing. And then finally, it's a lot about this cross collaboration between different competencies in the same room, be it virtually or physically, but with the same shared goals and collaborating together closely. That's what we mean by when we're talking about product development and modern product development practices. So the next topic we want to delve into is about really what we view as one of the most important prerequisites to improving and being better at product development, basically. And where we see some of the biggest improvements comes with how well your teams gel together and can work together. And not least that they can have fun while they're doing it as well. Because that's going to contribute a lot to in terms of productivity. But when we talk about these kind of well-functioning teams, what would you say are some of the key aspects that should be present in such teams? Johannes, would you like to start on that one?
Yeah, I believe you're mentioning fun. I believe starting off with actually aligning the team and having a lot of fun working also sounds pretty strange, but it's such a big ingredient in these teams. And I also mentioned alignment. I think it's so important to actually understand why you're building things and what's the purpose and why it's needed and why you can prioritize your work. You're not given requests or taking requests and features to build. You're actually, if you know what you're building, you get proud of your product and you know what the product needs and you get responsible, which is something that is important in these teams that feel responsibility and an alignment around the goal, I would say. What about you, David? What do you say?
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. Both the part of the importance of having fun while working, but also how your team needs to have a sense of responsibility and accountability. If you're just building things that someone else have solved for you and you just have to implement it, you'll never see the engagement in the team as you see if you give the whole team together something to solve. You give them a problem rather than a solution to implement. And then you say that whatever solution you do, you have to uphold these metrics or you need to improve something in this way or another, some form of tangible and real KPI that we can actually affect with our product. Then that responsibility and accountability, it sort of creates this engagement from everyone in the team, and everyone sort of starts really caring about what they are producing and how they are producing, and the why is so important to know why are we building something, and it really it's really good. And I think also when you start solving problems or opportunities together, the communication that you have in your team while doing this together really opens up, and the more you communicate, the more you will, during the solutioning, so to speak, the more you will communicate on a daily basis while working and working truly together, and not isolate yourself in a silo for 8 hours and just focusing, I'm doing my part, but rather lifting your head from the screen just a little bit every day on a regular interval and just talking to people and saying like, yeah, now I bumped into this. Do you have any, ideas or pointers, or do you have anything to contribute or help and assist? And when everyone is involved in everyone's work, everyone gets so much more engaged and really speeds up the tempo everyone is working at. Because if you're having fun and you're engaged, there'll be a nice cadence to stuff that you produce.
Definitely, and I think the key is here the combination between these things that you're talking about. We've got on the one hand this that we're having fun together, enjoy working together as a team, and on the other hand this responsibility and accountability, and that we're aligned around the same shared goals within the team as well. I think those two combined really unlocks the creativity in each of the members of the team as well, and it takes advantage of the expertises and creativity that's available in these teams that quite often we'll miss if we try to maybe micromanage, or if we try to give too clear instructions to a team about exactly what you should do or what you should build. course, we want to give them clear enough instructions so the direction is there. But then we need to give them a meaty enough problem to solve that it's actually worth utilizing the creativity as well. Definitely. So what would you say? I mean, if we get a team that's working like this, we're really responsible, accountable, we're having fun together, we're collected around the same goals. What are we going to see as the benefits of this?
Yeah,
David, would you like to start?
Sure. Yeah, my experience in my previous assignments and previous companies that I worked with, what I can see for sure is that whenever you start assigning more responsibility to the team, you see everyone sort of grow. And as you spoke about earlier, also the full experience of the team really gets used. If we have a problem that we have a dropout during checkout in our e-commerce, well, the chance is pretty big that a member of the team has previously worked with improving turnaround in checkouts in e-commerce. And if we don't get together and talk and share experiences, there's a chance that we're going to miss that sort of almost silver bullet of an answer, because it's a problem that's already been solved and they've been deeply involved in solving it. And then if we would sit and just do sort of stuff outside the team, we would lose those opportunities. And it's really nice shortcuts. It's like almost doping sort of your team if you use everyone's full knowledge and make sure that everyone's ideas get heard and bounced around, because you never know when you find those little nice golden nuggets of knowledge that'll really boost the product, both for the business but also for the end users.
Yeah, exactly. I believe you're on point. And if you look at a more traditional sales-driven feature request kind of work method, creative minds don't have the chance to be creative. If you actually gather information, as we talk about, gather information about why this is needed and prioritize work too, it's a high chance that you will establish a really solid team that believes in the product. And of course, that might be hard in an organization where you want to try this out, but we need to agree together in the product team, but also from, for example, the sales team, that we don't want to work with only requests coming in and features that we should build. We want to question why these things are needed, and we really want to ask the users that have these problems or issues. So take back the ownership of why we're actually building things.
Yeah.
Definitely, and that I'd say is the first bonus takeaway that you can have, is like always asking why, but not in a skeptical or no, we're definitely not doing that kind of way that we're just going to get stakeholders annoyed, but doing it in a way where you're genuinely curious and wanting to get in on solving what is it the problem that they're trying to solve, putting yourself in those shoes, and then in yourself in the driving seat to actually that we want to solve it as a team. Because I think most stakeholders and managers are just more than happy to get suggestions and help on how to actually solve these problems and achieve business results. So I think that's definitely applicable across the board.
Yeah, for sure. That curious why is so important. That it's truly curious, and also when you're finding out the answers to the why, it's so important also to try to talk to the actual end user, not like a representative of the end user, but talking to the end user. And it's not just the role of the UX designer who's been schooled and trained in interview technique to do these things. We do them all the time with the entire team. So there's always a tech representative present during these sort of interviews when we talk to people, because it's much more powerful that if you get a face, someone had a problem that they wanted the color to be red rather than blue, and if they talk to you about this face to face and really explains their problem, why they need this specific color or something, it's so much easier to connect when we're doing the work. And then you think about, I remember that user and they really suffered while using the product, so we really have to fix it for unnamed user, and it really connects the group as well when we do these things together. It's so important.
Definitely, and yeah, been real on that topic. When working in this kind of way, we don't do things in isolation. It isn't like the designer is going to sit for 2 weeks and do work on a design and then show it, get a lot of feedback, and it'll be another 2 weeks until you get the next draft, and then we'll show it again, and then again it's not quite hitting the mark. We're showing every day. We're collaborating on things and giving each other feedback and making sure that we're on the right page, that each perspective is heard. And also it means that the lines become blurry between who's responsible for what. We have clear kind of expertises within the team to make sure that all the bases are covered. But then together we do what needs to be done in order to solve the problem, and that could involve doing some stuff that aren't traditionally in your role as a developer, for example, or as a designer, or as a product manager for that matter. But we work together to do what needs to be done and collaborate on that.
Yeah.
Nice. I think I can summarize this topic then as well. So, with its well-functioning teams, it's a key prerequisite, I think, to working in this modern product development approach. Key aspects are having fun together, having this shared sense of responsibility and accountability, and connected around the same goals within the team. Fostering open communication. There's a lot of feedback. Doesn't matter if you do something wrong. All of these kind of things. The psychological safety is present in the team, and this will lead to that we have more engaged team members. We're utilizing more of the creativity, and ultimately reducing the needs then for a lot of unnecessary process overheads and administration, since the team is well-oiled and functioning well together. So on to the next topic then. The next thing that we wanted to talk about today is around the topic of team constellation. Sometimes we see that non-tech native companies in particular could be, for example, missing product management or design competence in certain teams. And I think the reason for that is the roles are sometimes misunderstood. And then I think we could probably have a full webinar on just this topic on its own. But just to touch on the topic and not delve into too much detail then, in terms of design and product management. I'm going to start with you, David, from the developer perspective. What would you say are the main benefits of working in a team where both design and product management competencies are present, compared with not, for example?
Yeah, for me, it's so important, right? Because of sort of the different expertises that are available. It's like, if you look at the core of it, the designer, the designer's full focus will be sort of on the users, the end users, the real user, and always sort of champion them to make sure that your product is usable, but also brings that high value for the user, to make sure that whatever thing we try to achieve, the solution we end up with should be something that the user values in one way or another. And on the other side, where we have like a product manager who sort of acts like a champion for the entire product, and also takes that real responsibility to make sure that whatever we build is sort of viable. It's important for the business that we do this. It goes in line with the business. This is an interesting thing for the business, and make sure that sort of our product goals align with the global goals of the company. And for me personally, if I could choose, let's say there's a project, a greenfield project or something, I would for sure rather go with a trio, with a product manager, a designer, and myself, rather than go in with like 3 developers. I would produce more code, more outcomes, and more outputs to have those competences by my side. It's so important because it eliminates tons and tons of questions that I might have. And I also feel that without, for example, a designer, I can create something really good, but I can never create something that's great, because there is no way I can have that sort of deep connection with the users and truly understand what they need. I don't possess the interview technique required to get the proper answers, to find the truth in sort of what we're talking about. So for me, it's immensely important to be supported by both product management and designers when producing, especially if you want to be on time. If you want to be on time, I need a PM and I need a designer, or else deadlines are going to fly out the window, for sure.
Yeah, I'm just on that topic you're into there without a designer. What about in this kind of scenario when maybe a company brings in a designer for 2 weeks to do a design, and then it's like, okay, the design work's now done. Now, David, work your magic. What are the potential pitfalls in that scenario?
Should I answer that, or should he?
Yeah, do it. Go for it, Johannes. Thank you.
I think there are major pitfalls in that case. Of course, 2 weeks is not enough for anything. And what do we actually mean with a good designer? If you're supposed to bring in design, you're not talking about sharp user interfaces. It could be a part of it, but I believe you cannot make only that, because then it's more or less this handover that I'm talking about, and it doesn't make the same value as being a complete team where the designer is always present. And you should focus on improving the user experience and understanding the business needs all the time. And David is talking about great things where he can learn from the users when he has a designer present. And I believe we activate each other in such a good way when you have a designer in your team. Because myself, I might have the knowledge and the skills to actually interact with the users, but I always bring everyone with me. And that is a super, super important step of this, that you have your expertise area, but you are working together all the time, and everyone is getting first-hand information. And that is also something to remember, that getting first-hand information for David or Alex or myself, everyone value that so much. It's so much better than that I bring something that everyone should trust, and we don't need handovers. It's great.
Yeah.
Definitely. So the actual UI design is such a small part of the product designer's role.
Definitely, yeah. I would argue that. Yeah.
Definitely. Yeah. Nice. Yeah, and then I think as well, another important point that I like to make at this stage as well is, even if your role title isn't product manager, maybe your title is a product owner or project manager or something else, you can see product manager as more of being a profession and something that you can always kind of develop in, and you can apply it on different roles, whatever your role is entitled, I would say. So I think you can still in your team have product management competence and apply kind of product management thinking, even if your actual role title isn't product manager within that particular team. And I think a lot of product owners should definitely feel that as well. I mean, you can definitely do your role in a more of a product manager approach and have that product manager mindset, even if the title isn't there.
Yeah, and it's also nicer sort of when you're in a product owner role, it's sort of implicit that you are the one responsible for the product, and that's no fun seat to be in. It's so much nicer to share the responsibility with other professionals in your team. Like Johannes is ultimately, as a designer, he's ultimately responsible for the usability and the value for the users, and that's sort of his. We all do it together, but that's his main responsibility. And the main responsibility for me as a developer is sort of, is it feasible? Can we build whatever solution we cooked up? How much will it cost to build it? And also making sure, can we deliver it in the hands of the end users? The deliverability of it is also like a key aspect to make sure that we deliver constant improved value to the users. And then the PM sort of with the whole viability thing to make sure that we build the correct stuff and to make sure that, everyone knows what we're up to and how we're aligning with our goals and being a true champion of the product, both externally and internally, but not necessarily being, the owner of the product and taking on all that responsibility by oneself. It's not it's a tough way to work if you don't share these responsibilities together, in my opinion.
Alex, a question to you. If you don't, what would you say to just give some advice here? If you don't have Alex Townsend in your team, if you don't have that competence, what would you suggest people try out?
Yeah, I think the key thing is about taking this kind of broader responsibility, not just for delivering what you've been asked to deliver. If in the case of where you might have been given a particular project or a particular output to deliver, but actually tracing it back to, okay, what is it we're actually trying to solve, both for the user and for the business as a whole. And then I think if you have a project manager or a product owner in the team, they'll have a lot of the skills necessary in terms of stakeholder management, in terms of product delivery, and all of these kind of things. And then add into that this kind of outcome focus and collaborating with the designer on your team, with the developers on the team, and taking this broader responsibility for actual business value will have like a huge impact on the team, and also develop you as in the field of product management. So I would say you don't need to wait for any blessing or any title changes or anything like that, or any organization changes or anything like that. As we talked about earlier, it's not about that. It's about these kind of principles that we're talking about. So I would say that's the most important thing.
Yeah, and from my perspective, design perspective, if I were about to give some advice, just find some easy way to interact with end users. You don't have to be a schooled UX designer to talk to the people using your product, and it might feel easy to give the responsibility to someone else. Someone else can talk to the user and they can tell me what they learn, etc., etc. But please do try to talk to them directly, even if you don't have the role or the title design. It's very valuable, and it could be in interviews or just trying to get in touch with them or somehow getting their input. And also a great advice is, when you talk to users, talk in open-ended questions. You don't want to give them suggestions, because usually users are not very good at knowing what they need actually. So open-ended question and trying to interact with them is my advice there.
Nice. So I think we're ready to summarize this section as well. So as I say, even if you don't have these roles on your team today, and they might be called something different, ensure that you have all these kind of responsibilities covered. So what we were talking about in terms of business value, customer value, feasibility, and the viability. You've got owners for that in your team and people taking responsibility for that. You'll make more progress if you have this kind of cross-functional team, even if it's only a trio, rather than just staffing up with only developers. Because at the end of the day, the focus is on getting the right outcomes for your business and for your customers, and not about writing as many lines of code as possible. Even if we would probably claim, without having the scientific evidence now, that you probably would even have more lines of code written in this scenario as well. At least more lines of code that you'll keep. I think is the important thing. So, and then finally, what we talked about here is that the goal of this and what we get out of this is that by covering this kind of business, user, and tech perspective, we'll also minimize handovers in the team as well, and have a much more effective way of working together. So then going on to this final topic then, which is probably what you've all been waiting for, the headline act, which is, what are the improvements that you can make today? So starting with you then, David.
Sure.
What would you say? What your one, like, if you're going to say do one thing today, leave this webinar and try one thing today in your way of working, what would it be?
Yeah, that would be rough with just one thing. I'd have like 3 things, but if I pick one that's most relevant to myself, is that try to transform receiving solutions into receiving problems and solve the problems as a team. Involve tech, involve the entire team in the problem solving, because it's so easy when you are responsible for a product as a product owner or something similar, that you try to solve the problems by yourself. And it's so much better to use everyone's experience and logical thinking and problem solving abilities. Developers are problem solvers by trade. They are great at problem solving. So whenever there's a problem we need to solve, get everyone on board and get everyone's competence heard and listened to, and utilize the full power of your team, and don't run it in a hierarchical manner in that way of speaking, but make sure that we pick up all the good stuff from everyone. That would be one of my primary things to change if it's not working like that today. That would be the first thing I changed myself. What about you, Johannes? Do you have one of those sort of?
I just think you're on point, and I think involve each other early and often, and do things together. You don't want to do a solo raid here. It's very important that tech, product, and design do the discovery together, where they understand the end users, and that is probably as I mentioned before here, my best advice, first advice, to start interact with users somehow, and try to. A great recommendation is deciding what you want to learn, and not just. It's good to just speak and talk to users, but if you actually want to learn a specific thing, you can prepare in a very good way, and start small, start simple. If you cannot talk to them, try to get some sort of feedback in your product, maybe from a forum or a survey or something. Start small and find a way to listen to your users.
Yeah, and if you can't like directly communicate with your users, or if doing like a survey or something isn't going to yield results, I mean, just sort of the water cooler thing, just bump into a colleague from a different department, the economy department, and bring pen and paper and just do a really rough sketch. It doesn't matter if you're a designer or not, and just present it, because you'll get surprising answers sometimes. You think like, yeah, we're on it, and then you show it to the person who is handling salaries, and they'll just blow your mind, and they'll find problems or issues instantly. And it takes only 5 minutes to get that feedback. I mean, it's so good to get that outside look. It's, of course, the best thing is an actual user. But I mean, in absence of an actual user, anyone who's not on your team, try to talk to them, and it all adds up.
I translated a lot to be not to wait for the perfect moment. User research can be done very quick and dirty, and in this case, you want to find you want to listen to someone that is not producing this. Of course, disclaimer: always try to talk to end users. That is always what you want to do. But not finding, like, waiting for the perfect moment, because then you're waiting and waiting.
Yeah,
definitely. Some external interaction is better than none. But we should aim to speak to target users as much as possible. And it's often as well, I think you've talked about it a lot before as well, it's easier than a lot of people think as well. Like, we don't need to build it up as being a big thing that you need to have a degree to be able to speak to a customer. Just go out there and start asking them open questions, show them your product, and see what they say, and take the insights from there. And then you'll be better at it by practicing it as well. So
definitely. Well.
And usually it's hard to make a bad impression, because customers love to be involved and give input on things as well, and that actually builds the relationship with your brand and your product in a way that they feel, oh, I've contributed to that. So yeah, and I think my one takeaway would be, I would say, go away today and think about one key meaningful metric that you and your product team can start to measure, and so you should choose something where you can have kind of tangible impact within your team on this particular metric. Again, a little bit on the same with the same mindset as with the customer. You don't need to wait until you have the perfect metric in this respect before you start measuring something, because by starting to measure this metric, you'll probably learn what you should be measuring instead. So just start measuring something, connecting your team around it, and start following up on, okay, how do the things we deliver, what impact do they have on this particular metric, and what does that tell us about the success of what we've just done and what we should maybe do going forward, and then tweaking that over time until you find that, okay, this is the right thing for us to measure as a product team. It's something that we can affect, and it should also be something that's your stakeholders and the other people around the business actually care about, that they're significant to them as well. Then you can have a common discussion about increasing it and what you can do, and working together and collaborating with the rest of the organization as well.
I also think it's so important when you're like measuring metrics that you just don't bombard your applications with measurements and numbers and analyzing every click and whatnot. It's like you need why are we measuring this? There needs to be a significant reason why we're measuring it, because if you gather too much data, you're going to get lost instantly in a storm of data. And I think that sort of follows up. I think I said I have like 3 things that I always want to do, but also one thing
cheating now, David.
Yeah, no, but question stuff, question the why behind. If a sales guy is talking to a client and the client is telling the sales guy they want something, and the sales guy comes and tells you that, yeah, this customer really wants this or else the world is going to explode, sort of question why. What when they say they are telling you what they want, but what is it that they actually need? What's the problem that they're trying to solve? And question the reason behind things. For 5 years, we always said that the users prefers red. Well, that might not be true anymore. Maybe blue is the new color. So always try to question with these curious why questions, and dig and try to be data informed through these metrics in combination with talking to people, because you never know, they might tell you what they want and that wasn't what they wanted at all. They needed something completely different, and maybe the data can guide you towards finding what they actually need, and that's so important.
Yeah, and I think it goes well in hand with what I said, like decide what you want to learn. It's what's David saying here.
Definitely. And I think we can round off then summarizing this topic as well. I mean, Johannes knows that green is the correct color, David.
There's a lot of talk about colors when talking about the changes. There are usually other stuff.
Change everything to green, and your products will be successful. No, but the serious takeaways from this is involving tech in problem solving and in deciding what to build. And of course, that's assuming that you're already involved in terms of product management and design. Most common is that we don't include tech until later. Bring them into those early discussions. Start small in terms of regularly interacting with customers. Get into a habit, and don't wait until you have someone who's got 10 years of experience talking to customers. Just get out and start talking to customers. Any feedback is better than no feedback. Question the reasons for the features, and then visualize and follow up on the assumptions as well. So like when you hear these reasons and motivations behind doing a feature, follow up when you implement that feature. Did we actually achieve those goals? And back it up with data where you can as well, and have those open discussions with people outside your team. And then finally, identify this one key meaningful metric for your product team that you can affect from your product team and follow up on. And then again, meaningful is an important key word here as well. It needs to be meaningful for the business as a whole as well, for it to have the effects that you want it to have. So that's basically what we had for you today. I think we've got a little bit of time now for some questions. I'll hand back over to Sabina, who will host that for us.
Oh, I'm so ready for the Q&A. And so this is after this great discussion, now the time has come to write your questions in the chat in this Google Meets, or you can also raise your hand and ask our experts directly. And until we get those questions written down here, I wanted to ask you a question. I think Alexander would be the best one for this. Correct me if I'm wrong, but could you briefly describe the main difference between a product manager and a product owner?
Yeah, thanks for the question. I think, as I said earlier when I was speaking, I think in terms of role titles, we don't need to be too tied up in this actual title of the role. If you're sitting in a product owner role, you don't need to feel that this doesn't apply to you. This stuff. I mean, if you're in a product owner role, you're in a position where you can apply all of this stuff in your role, definitely. And I would say that product owner is a specific role that falls within the field of product management, which is like a broader field. But I think in terms of how these roles are interpreted in organizations today, the key difference would be that a product owner is more in terms of maximizing the value created out of this list of features that you've maybe got from elsewhere in the organization. And the product owner themselves has not necessarily been the one that's directly thinking up what these set of features are. Whereas the product manager is more, okay, we'll take a business problem or a customer problem, and then we'll work out what it is that we need to do to solve to have this impact on the business value. So I think it's taking a broader responsibility in terms of the actual business impact of what you do, and not simply taking this kind of list of features and maximizing the value from that, because you're already limiting yourself in a way to you can't do any better than what's already on that backlog list. If none of those things are the right things for your customers or for your business, then you're not gonna solve that business problem. So I'd say that's the key difference in terms of how it's been implemented today. But again, if you're in a product owner role, you can be a product manager in reality, I would say.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. And speaking of a lot of sense, Sandra posted in the chat and asked, what's your thoughts on team or agile coaches and operations people? So what are your thoughts on team agile coaches and operations people? Who can answer this one?
I can give it a go anyway. I think it can definitely be helpful to have some kind of coaches to help your teams if you've not been doing these kind of things before, help you build in new habits and things. I think the important thing is to find people who have done these things before and can demonstrate like some kind of success with another company previously. I think then that having that experience being shared with you and your team could definitely be helpful on that respect. I'm not sure operations people. I'm not sure what's meant by that. So maybe if you could clarify.
Sandra, if you want to speak up, or just type in the comment what exactly you meant by that. And until we get to that one, Mateusz also dropped a good one. He said, developers fix issues, making pull requests on GitHub and GitLab. Managers use project management tools like ClickUp or Jira. Do you have any specific suggestions how to bridge those two worlds?
Yeah, I can take that one. It's a bit of a passion thing for me. So if you work in like really close collaboration, then so what you use Jira for is like a twofold thing. One is this is our stuff that it's like our ideas box, right? here's stuff that we might want to do in the future. And then you organize that and you sort of clean it up a little bit and say, these are stuff that we actually want to do. We as a team have come together and we've decided that this is something we want to do. This was an idea, this was a solution or something, and we're going to do it. And then we have like the third level, that maybe the Jira ticket itself like describes exactly what you're going to do. It has acceptance criteria and specifications and all that sort of stuff. And during this talk, we've been talking about sort of reducing handovers, reducing sort of admin and all that stuff. And if you're in constant talking about things, the content of the Jira tickets doesn't have to be very advanced. I mean, when I started doing Scrum and Kanban, we used Post-it notes on a wall, right? And you can't put a lot of details in a Post-it note. You know, the Post-it note says, fix the login, you know? But if we've been talking about these things and decided together that we need to fix the login, there's a very high chance that everyone in the room or in the team knows what we're talking about. And if I don't know exactly the detail, well, what was that final little issue? Well, then I just talk to my team and say, Johannes, do you remember what we said about this? Or if you need more details, it's a very specific thing, well, then you add those details. But for me, a lot of it is just reducing as much of that admin as fully possible, because nobody enjoys, well, sorry, I don't enjoy managing boards and moving tickets around and adding acceptance criteria and all that jazz. The less of that stuff I can do, I can focus so much more on my specific expertise and what I do. And like the pull requests, that's sort of a side thing, right? That's a way to let your team know, this is the code I'm committing. Look at it, give me comments, help me out. I'm sharing what's happening or going on in this corner of the product. So I don't think that necessarily, it depends on how much you want to use that. It's the same as with the Post-it notes or the Jira. You can either have like a forced sort of always a pull request where someone has to accept and approve of your pull request or something. But in a high functioning team, those things doesn't exist, right? If I've done something complicated, I'll make a pull request and I'll say, could you take a look at this before we push it in, right? But most of the time, there will be a pull request and it will just go straight through and into production if all the tests pass, right? So it all depends on how high performant you want to be, what type of team you have. But when we've been talking now, we're talking about well-functioning teams that performs on a high level. I hope that was...
I'll just add to that shortly with a different take on it as well, in terms of, I think, really think about what tools you're using in terms of what problems are each of these tools solving for us as a team. Like, how are they helping us to better solve the business problem and customer problem that we're trying to actually solve, and taking that approach and thinking about why are we actually using these. Maybe then you can think about, okay, should we be using different tools? And I'd also recommend as well, in terms of this, in terms of bridging the different worlds, if you can find as many tools as possible that are solving these problems for you, the ones that you're using in your team, where you can collaborate, all of you within the team, and not just having different tools for each responsibility and each role. I think that will definitely help. I mean, we work a lot in tools like Miro and FigJam and Figma, and collaborating, ideating in the same place. I think will help bridge that gap.
And while we're bridging that gap, can I just ask a kind of follow-up question on the tools and methods that you mentioned? Because we talked about doing user research, right? Do you have any tools and methods that you use to collect this user data and feedback? Something to, like, how should you start on that one? What methods or tools would you recommend? Not all of
Mute, Johannes.
Sorry. So I would suggest keeping it very simple, because you want to get going, and it can feel overwhelming doing thematic analysis or whatever, where you do a very, very big analytic work. I suggest a document where you can actually have your questions that you got answered and make a summary of what you learned together, because then it's very easy to grasp, and you can revisit it to understand what you learn. Of course, if you do a bigger user research, you might want to have more structure around it, and I think continuous discovery is a great way of working, which I can talk more about if someone would like to know.
And Teresa Torres, she recommends making these kind of interview summary cards where you can have like a picture of the customer and then some key insights and headlines, and you can have that in a place like Miro or FigJam, where you kind of summarize together what were the most important things and quotes from this particular interview, and then if you're following that continuous discovery way of thinking, you kind of map them to your opportunity solution tree and things like that as well later. So it doesn't need to be complicated, I think, is the key.
Let's complicate stuff less, right? Okay, and we have time for the final question, which was written by Chris. He said, we've discussed a lot about the importance of understanding the why behind a feature or a request. As a consultancy that works with clients and stakeholders who may have many different perspectives about what should be built and how do you all approach situations where you disagree with what is being asked and are not able to dissuade a client? It's a good one. Who's gonna?
Yeah, I can start. I think it's a great question, and I think you want to try to collaborate with the person asking for this thing, feature, or output, and trying to get to the source. We established a great way of thinking about requests or questions from sales or customer service or whomever in the organization we work, that we always challenge and want to understand more about the problem. We just don't say okay, and well, I'm kind of repeating myself, but I think it's great to just tag along with the person. And please, can you show me where you found these things? I'm interested. I'm dedicated to get this right. Please show me why it's important. And when you go through all the material or source or talk to the people who actually ask this, you can, together with the person requesting it, understand maybe that it's not the right thing to do. But sometimes you might need to build it. And I think as long as you're honest and very transparent that you see flaws in it or wouldn't do the same thing if you were about to decide, I would do that too. But Alex, David, please fill in here.
Yeah, I definitely agree. It's about having this kind of not being skeptical, but being curious. I mean, at the end of the day, the client could see something that you might not see as a consultant as well. So it's about sharing the different perspectives, agreeing on, okay, this is the way forward, and then going for it, but then also following it up in terms of data and insights and okay, were we right on this? And then you can look at it objectively then, and have a discussion around it, and then what next steps should we take? So I think that's definitely how I would approach it anyway. It's about having this humble, curious, and genuinely like wanting to help the client approach, and then agreeing on how we go forward together.
Yeah, and also try to follow your regular way of working by, even if this is maybe not something that you believe in or something that you haven't found any form of evidence that we should do. Well, make sure that you gather evidence after you're done. Make sure you have the metrics, and so that you can be data informed. Don't be afraid to remove something later. If it's a feature, we as a team who knows most likely the users the most, if we don't think that this is going to fly, well, if they really want it, we'll build it, and then we measure it, and then we can follow up in 6 months. And if we see that this wasn't used, then we remove it again. Or if it was a smash success, well, kudos and congratulations. That's great, right? If the product is good, we are good. So
it's 1 o'clock, so that's it for today. Thank you so much to everyone. This was really an exciting discussion, and thank you for all the questions. And to everyone who joined us, we will send you a key takeaways document in the webinar recording in a few days, so keep an eye on your email inbox. And thank you so much again for joining us. And the product development is a lot simpler than you think webinar, and I'm looking forward to seeing you in the next one. So have a fantastic rest of the week and see you soon. Bye.
Bye. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.